So, you're struggling with A-level economics. You kinda understand the material, gain a little bit of confidence, then once you do one essay question, all that confidence just flies out the window. I feel your pain. So in this video, I will be explaining how to score A star for A-level economics. I went from scoring C in my first assessment to scoring A star in my final exam, so if I can do it, you can do it too. There are 9 tips in total. Feel free to skip to the parts that you're interested in, but I assure you, you do not want to miss anything. Study tip number 2, 4, and 8 are unique study tips that you have not heard before, so be sure to watch till the end of the video to know what those are. First, let's talk about how to write a good A-level economics essay because that is the most scary part. What separates a B and C student from an A and A star student is how you define your question, how you structure your essays, your evaluation, and your conclusion. So here's how you can prepare and write the perfect definitions to include in your introductions for your essay. So first, you take your textbook and go through each subtopic. You can see here in chapter 1 that there are 13 subtopics. You should prepare definitions for each subtopic. For example, what is the definition of economic efficiency, productive efficiency, and so on. You can find definitions really easily by just Googling the term. Try not to use the first few search results because that means that every other student is going to write the same thing as you. Instead, go for search results at the bottom of the page, or combine sentences from different resources if you're hardworking. I did write all my definitions by hand into my notebook, but that is really time consuming, so feel free to set up your Google spreadsheet like this one I'm showing here. Then you want to find examples for each term that you have defined. Here is my definition for transition economies. Again, I include examples. You do not have to include examples in your introduction because that can make your intro a little bit too long, but it's always good to include those examples somewhere else in your essay because it shows that you have done further reading and research and it really impresses the examiner. That's an A-star tip right there. By the way, I have posted a video on how I went from scoring C's to triple A-star A in A-levels, so be sure to check that out here. Now, when do you write these definitions? So when you're reading your essay questions, you want to identify the keywords. For this question here, it's pretty obvious that the keyword is labor force. Take the definition that you have prepared beforehand and use that in your introduction. Sometimes there's only one keyword and sometimes there are many keywords in one essay question. Just to make sure that you have defined all the keywords. So next, how to write your evaluation. There are 3 ways to write your evaluation: contradiction, short run versus long run, or magnitude. Pick one. If you pick contradiction, you have to give a reason as to why your law, policy, or intervention might not work in certain circumstances. You also have to explain why it wouldn't work. Pause to read an example of an evaluation for subsidies. Short run versus long run is pretty self-explanatory. You just have to explain why your policy, law, or intervention wouldn't work in the short run or long run. Pause to read this example on profits in monopolistic markets. And lastly, pause to read an example for the third type of evaluation. Tip number 3, for the conclusion, there are 3 ways to write it: prioritization, depends, and alternative. So I hope these tips help you write a good introduction, conclusion, and evaluation for your A-level economics essays. You can prepare and memorize definitions before your exam, so I highly recommend that you do that because including good definitions in your introduction will leave a very good impression on your examiner. Before I explain how to organize your work in a way that will predict what will come out, I first want to recommend a class on Skillshare that I think you guys should watch. Skillshare is an online learning community that offers literally thousands of classes on everything from entrepreneurship to time management and my personal favorites, art and productivity. The class that I recommend for you guys to watch is Simple Productivity: How to Accomplish More with Less by Greg McKeown, especially lesson 3 and 8. Greg explains how to truly prioritize what is important and how to easily implement new habits in your life, which is super helpful for any student out there. The great thing is, you can actually watch this class for free because the first 1,000 of you guys who click the link in my description box will get a free 1-month trial of the premium membership on Skillshare. So you can watch all these amazing professional videos to maximize your productivity or explore your creativity. Thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Tip number 4, how to organize your work in a way that will predict what topics and essay questions will come out. For paper 2 and paper 4, this is how you should organize your work. For section A, you want to write down the theme of the question. For example, is the question talking about oil or inflation? And you also want to write down the type of questions that they ask. This will really help you during revision because when you're revising a certain subtopic like aggregate demand, you can immediately refer back to the type of questions that they will ask about that subtopic. For essay questions, I prefer organizing them on paper. Listen carefully because this next tip will be how you're going to predict what essays will come out. When I want to do a new question, I will write the question and the year on top, then write the essay or bullet points at the bottom. Be sure to leave a few empty lines between the question and your essay. This is because I've realized that a lot of A-level economics essay questions have the same or similar answers. They just word the question differently each time. So every time you come across a new essay question that has a similar answer to a previous essay question that you have done before, just write the new question at the bottom of the previous question. You can see here that there are several questions over the years that ask about inflation, how it's measured, its problems, and so on. So I just grouped them all together. This is how you predict what type of essay questions will come out, because since there are so many questions, you know that for this particular topic, this type of essay question is popular. But of course, do not blindly copy and paste the same answers for each essay question. You have to modify them accordingly. An advertisement might play in the next few seconds, so if you want to support this channel, please do not skip the ads. Thank you! Tip number 6, to predict which topics will come out, I will take a few pieces of plain paper and write different topics on them. The great thing about A-level economics is that it's super easy to predict which topics will come out for your exam. For example, if there are many essays under the comparative and absolute advantage subtopic, then you know that you need to focus on this topic for your exam. Tip number 7, how to prepare for objective questions or MCQ questions. When you're doing past year papers, take note of the questions that you got wrong by highlighting or circling them. For questions that you really don't understand, write out your current understanding of the question in a pencil, then go to your lecturer and ask them to explain it correctly to you. Write down the correct explanation in a different colored pen and do not erase your wrong understanding. I've made the mistake of showing my lecturer all the questions that I got wrong, but then completely forgetting what I don't understand about those questions. So please do not repeat my mistake. You can also track your corrections like this so that you can pinpoint which topics you need to work more on. Super important tip number 8, read the examiner's report. This is a tip that not many students are aware of but will transform your grades. In the examiner reports, the examiner will write down what mistakes other students have made in the past and what points or arguments excellent students have included in their answers. For example, this examiner wrote that it was obvious in some answers that candidates had not looked closely at the command or directive word being used. In another question, the examiner wrote that better answers divided the effects of a high and increasing rate of inflation into 2 broad categories. See, these are such good tips coming directly from the person marking your paper. Search up the month and year of your paper, then write examiner report. Not all papers have examiner reports, but you should always look them up. It is what transformed my grades from C to A star. Tip number 9, how to correctly and accurately implement graphs into your essays. For my final exam, I managed to effortlessly draw 11 graphs in my essay, and here is how. I drew all the graphs that I know I might use on a few pieces of paper. Every time I write an essay, I will refer back to that paper and ask myself, is there a graph I can add in here? Graphs do carry a lot of marks, but only if you draw them correctly. So please always practice drawing your graphs when writing your essay. That way, you'll learn how to draw them really fast and you'll know when and where to implement them in your essay. If you've made it this far, comment down below if you prefer essay questions or objective questions. I'd be sure to reply you. Like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications and set it to all so that you do not miss out on any future uploads. Thank you all for 180,000 subscribers, and I see you all in my next video. Bye bye!